Under the supervision of Dr. Dariush and the mentorship of Mr. J. Bhatt, the Drexel IEEE Graduate Forum aims to expose Drexel graduate students to the latest technology and knowledge, encouraging the application of fundamental theory and practice of electrical, electronics, telecommunications, biomedical, computer engineering, software engineering, and computer science for their fundamental benefit. We at the IG help promote networking and building relationships between industry and Drexel graduate students, while also instrumenting creativity, innovation, and values with the professional experience of IEEE and its resources. Feel free to talk to any one of us if you're interested in joining Drexel IEEE Graduate Forum. Today we are gathered here to celebrate our annual committee recognition event, honoring alumni officers and acknowledging the efforts put into making Drexel IEEE Graduate Forum a better organization throughout these years. Our first speaker today is Gaurang Bham, CEO and lead software architect of Crowds. Crowds is a food ordering app that makes use of off-peak hours at restaurants and provides customers with exclusive discounts. With experience in software industry ranging from small IT firms to large Fortune 50 companies like the Comcast Universal and the Johnson & Johnson, Gaurang has cultivated an understanding of what it takes to run tech companies that operate at various scales. Born and raised in Philadelphia, Gaurang's passion is using his software engineering background to revolutionize online food ordering for the better, especially from his favorite local restaurants. He's currently a senior at Drexel University, pursuing his software engineering and doing a minor in entrepreneurship. So join me in welcoming him.
Hello everyone. Let me just give me a second to start set up. How's everyone doing? It's Friday. Alrighty. Let me just get this all set up. So I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate being invited to this event. I'm very thankful, and I'm excited to tell you guys a little bit about Crowds and a little bit about myself. So I'll just start off with some background about myself. I'm from Philadelphia, born and raised. For those of you who are who are local to the area, I'm a Central Lancer, 274, and I grew up in a very tech-depraved household. What that means is we didn't have a lot of technology in my household growing up. I grew up kind of poor, so we had a Windows 95 computer until I was in college. We had flip phones. I'd always be going to sort of friends' houses who had newer computers and all the latest tech. And when I wasn't there, I would always be at home working on that Windows 95 computer with the dial-up internet. You guys remember that, all that noise, yeah, all of that. And I'd be going through all the programs, learning how they work. I was trying to boot up Excel on this small computer, and I was so inspired and so into it that I actually one day opened it up because I thought, oh, I can make it faster, and I ended up breaking the computer. And yeah, so we had to buy a new computer. My mom wasn't happy about that. And the other thing was, I am a foodie. I grew up a fat kid, so I love food. If you ever see a picture of me, there's some food in my hand, and I'm blessed because I grew up in Philadelphia, which is such a culturally rich city with so many different types of cuisine that really broadens your horizon. And that passion for technology and food sort of inspired me to work on Crowds, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I just want to give you guys some background demographics about the restaurant industry. 50 to 60% of restaurants are failing. 70% fail within the first year. In Philadelphia, the ones that don't are only making profit margins of about 4 to 7%, and that's about 16% less than they were a decade ago, and that's because sales are only being generated about 2 to 4 hours a day. The rest of the day, the restaurant is relatively empty. They might have, the best chicken fingers, the best veggie burger, and they're empty. They're wondering, what did we do wrong? And there's a number of reasons why. The cost to run a restaurant, it's gone up. When you started, the lease was probably $600, and now in 2019, it's probably $1,800. You can't afford to keep up with those rent prices, but also the restaurant industry is very oversaturated. what restaurants to choose from. There's like a million taco restaurants in Philadelphia. How can they entice customers? And the thing is, unless you have an amazing brand, marketing is everything. You have to promote and you have to put out deals. And if you do a quick Google search on how to bring more customers into a restaurant, it's all about putting out deals when they're not busy. But how do you do that when you don't have exposure, you know? A big brand, say like Popeyes, can put out a chicken sandwich. There'll be a big line out the door and it'll be sold out in the same week. I'm sure, and some of you guys have tried this chicken sandwich, it's not that good. But yeah, and the current solutions aren't really doing much for them. You know, Grubhub's entire business model is putting the restaurant online, but not doing much else. And when you survey these restaurants, they say it's hard to communicate, we can't update our menu, we can't update our prices fast enough to reflect when our off-peak hours are. And if you want to be featured on the first page of Grubhub, you better be prepared to charge 30% commission, which is way too high for most restaurants. And then there's Groupon. I'm sure we've all used Groupon before. The $40 sushi for $10. You're not going to go back when it's $40 again. There's no incentive for customers to return. So what me and my co-founder set out to do was build a food ordering platform that dynamically discounts menu items based off of off-peak hours. We want to virtually optimize foot traffic in the restaurant, increase sales throughout the entire day, and providing customers like you a discount. So similar sort of setup to Grubhub. We have a platform vendor app where essentially we basically allow the restaurant to monitor sales as well as determine how generous or conservative they want the deal to be. And then we have a user app that you guys can use on your smartphone, look up the best deals, you know, six-piece wings might be $10, we're slashing it to $7, you can add to cart and order and go pick up takeout. And so you might be wondering how. So this is where we get into the technology behind this, and I'll briefly go over it. So we're using a combination of computer vision and machine learning. So the computer vision aspect comes into it where we integrate with existing security camera setups that all restaurants have at their business, you know, to monitor, make sure no one's going in stealing stuff. And so basically, we're using computer vision to basically generate data from that live feed of people coming in and out, as well as integrating with current point of sale system to actually monitor what the most popular food items are, what the least popular food items are, and the supply and demand of your restaurant, to then dynamically scale the pricing of various menu items to drive customers in. This is a technology that's being used in a lot of different applications in 2019. There's a company known as AuraVision that's using computer vision in retail stores and malls. And what they're actually doing is they're garnering demographic data from live video feeds at malls. They're able to tell businesses, you know, who their core customers is. Is it the male in the 45 to 50 range? Is it females? Is it college students? And selling that data to big advertising companies. And all of this right now is open source. You can actually go mess around with OpenCV and other libraries like that. This is our senior design project. We actually were able to get our senior design advisor, we were actually able to get accurately his age and his gender. And then at the actual senior design presentation, we're actually able to get emotional data, you know, if you're happy, if you're sad, to a relatively good accuracy. And the install base is already there for what we're trying to do. 56% of online food ordering are people like us, millennials, Gen Zs, people living in urban areas, like the students, the recent graduates, the recently employed. You know, we're all college students. We don't really care when we eat. We care more about how much money we're saving, you know? So, you know, we've all been there. Midterms, it's 2 a.m., we need some chicken fingers. You know, if we can get them for $3 instead of $5, we're gonna go to the $3 place. So that's sort of who we're targeting. So we wanna reach about 270,000 potential active users and also bring those savings back to the restaurant, charging them a 10% sales transaction fee per sales transaction to actually be competitive to current online ordering platforms like Grubhub and Uber Eats, while providing more value and putting the power back into the restaurant's hands. So you might be wondering why. I was like, who is this guy? I'm an undergrad student, senior, Drexel University Software Engineering. My co-founder and I, over the years, we're young, but we've been able to garner a good amount of experience in the software industry. Between the two of us, we've garnered about 4 to 5 years of software experience, either doing freelance work, making prototypes, as well as working for Fortune 50 companies like Johnson & Johnson, Comcast Labs, JP Morgan Chase, and also starting our own social venture, which actually helps provide IT education to people in the Benin Republic of Africa. And we have a great team behind us, a mixture of freshmen, co-ops that we're currently managing right now, PhD students, and marketing experts. And we're really excited to bring crowds to University City come January 2020. So if you want to help us revolutionize food ordering, you can visit findyourcrowds.com for more. And if any of you guys are interested, we actually have a couple of roles opened up right now. If you're interested in AI, ML engineering, or web development, backend development, as well as, this is the most important, we're actually launching our beta on November 1st. And if you want to be a beta tester, you'll be the first person to try out the app, get free credits to actually use and go to restaurants and purchase items. And all you have to do is use the app once or twice a week and fill out surveys, and you'll be thrown into a raffle to win a $50 Amazon gift card. So thank you. Yeah, so right now we've applied for, we've mainly been self-funding, as well as winning a number of pitch competitions, as well as grants. So we recently were the recipient of the Startup PHL Venture Program, which essentially we were given a $10,000 grant. And we're still actively pursuing funding via that model, and also bootstrapping along the way.
Are you also pursuing via the center support as well? Because that is a Drexel established avenue to provide financial support for senior design.
Yes. So we're actually incubated in the Bayada Institute incubator, right? And I forgot to mention that. So our office or workspace is literally down the street in Pearlstein. So yeah, we're based out of there right now. So even if you have any questions post this presentation, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to go visit me and say hi. Just introduce yourself. And yeah, I'm very open when it comes to that.
Senior design project, right?
Yes.
Is it for this year or coming year?
Oh, so it was for last year. So so I found a loophole in the senior design plan of study, where essentially, if you're labeled a senior, you can do senior design without actually being a senior, which is what I did. So I was able to do that with my co-founder, who was a senior. He just graduated in 2019, and now he's working. And so me and him were actually able to do that for our senior design project. And we focused a lot more on the computer vision and machine learning part of it, where we're actually able to create a time scale based off of data that we pulled from a web crawler, as well as data that we pulled from the sensors.
So what is your vision?
Where do you
see from 2 years from now?
So what we actually want to do is we want to reach about 200 restaurants in Philadelphia within the next 2 years, and basically garner about a 5% market share in the city of Philadelphia between all of the other food ordering platforms. We want to capture about 5% of the market.
So currently, how many restaurants do you have?
Right now we have 10 restaurants on board.
How many?
10.
10.
Yes.
Are you planning to increase?
I'm sorry?
Are you hoping to increase?
Oh, absolutely. Every day I'm going out and I'm pitching to restaurants around the area. And this is just sort of a quick little tip about pitching. Restaurants are busy, so I'll go. When I was working at Comcast, I would skip my lunch every day, and I would just go to a restaurant. Hi, do you have a minute to talk about? I'm working on this app. Blah 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 blah. They're like, oh, sorry, I'm busy. I'm like, okay, here's my card. I'll come back tomorrow. Come back tomorrow. Hey, how's it going? I'm here to pitch my app again. I'm busy. Okay, here's my card again. Here, come back tomorrow. And you just keep doing that until eventually they're gonna be like, okay, let's hear your 5 minutes. You give your 5-minute pitch, and then they're on board. So that's sort of the way that we've been going about it. We don't have any name recognition, so you would just have to sort of hustle, if that's the right term. So, yeah. Any other questions? Okay, cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Gaurang. That was amazing. Moving on, our second speaker is Fallon Kider, who is an electrical designer at Kupper Engineering, located in Ambler, Pennsylvania. She is working on utility and commercial-scale solar projects. She is also an active volunteer for the Philadelphia section IEEE as PACE chair. She graduated in 2015 with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Drexel University, where she was a member of the Drexel IEEE student branch and the Alpha Omega Epsilon Beta Mu chapter. Join me in welcoming her.
Thank you. Oh no, I'm not gonna restart. Hi, my name is Fallon Kider, and I will be talking to you about distributed generation. And I would like to thank you all for letting me come here and share some of my experiences and passion with you guys. So a little bit about me. I graduated from Drexel University in 2015 with a bachelor's in electrical engineering. I'm a member of IEEE and Eta Kappa Nu. I'm also PACE chair for the Philadelphia section of IEEE. I'm an alumni of Alpha Omega Epsilon Engineering Sorority, and I've been an electrical designer at Kupper Engineering since September 2015. And I would say that I have about 5 years of solar experience, including my co-op. Also, I am also a Central Lancer, Class 269, since we're so Philly born and raised. So when I'm out in social situations and people ask me, what do? I say I design utility and commercial scale photovoltaic plants. And I get kind of a blank look and people don't know what that means. I design solar. I don't make solar panels. I don't install solar panels. I just design them. I work with developers, utilities, financiers, clients, contractors, and other engineers to create large-scale photovoltaic plants, right? When they're out like this, they are called distributed generation, kind of taking some load off the grid, well, adding to the grid so that we can lessen our dependence on fossil fuels. So this is just an example of one of my projects. It's my favorite project. Just, very basic, solar design. We have solar panels. They are basically DC. When you connect them up in series, the voltage goes up. Modules connected in series are called a string, and when you collect all the strings together, the current goes up, and then you feed that to a common connection point. Sometimes it's a combiner box, a DC combiner box, and sometimes it's just the inverter itself. But then the inverter converts the DC to AC, and you can use it for your loads, right? It's very simple, not rocket science, right? So that's that. I'm going to talk about a very specific project that I did. So the project is a client, very large client, has an existing plant. They produce something. And they have very high utility bills, and they want solar to be installed behind the meter to kind of offset their loads. What does behind the meter mean? This facility has a utility meter, and they want to install the solar behind that meter such that all the power, they're taking less power from the utility, and it's being offset by the solar. It only feeds that customer's load, does not necessarily, you can have net metering, but in this case, it does not feed back to the grid. So some project details. So usually when we do behind the meter, it's for a school or a mall, very low voltage, 480 volt, 208 volt. But this plant in particular had an existing medium voltage feed of 35 kV. So already some protection is needed. Not just that, a client says, well, our direct feed that we're getting from the utility, it's kind of unreliable. So what we need actually is a voltage regulator. Cool, okay, we got this. Well, it's behind the meter, so we're gonna need a new 8 MVA transformer to feed the existing plant. And we're going to need separate transformers for the solar, right? It all has to be at 35 kV. But the site is so big, it's about 6 megawatts, actually gonna need 6 transformers. And they all have to be connected. Another fun fact is, well, this facility actually had previous solar on their roof, and they want to increase the size, but the panels that they have are kind of obsolete, can't get them anymore. So really they're going to buy new panels to get up to that 6 megawatt size and new inverters. So what ends up happening is you have a retrofitted system with these kind of older modules and inverters, and the new one that's top of the line, more or less. As if that wasn't enough, well, with the two different modules, it actually involves two different sets of calculations, and how do you connect up to the inverter, and protection, and cable sizes. On top of all of that, this facility wants to put their solar on a Superfund site. So what does that mean? There's no digging. Usually when electrical installations are installed, contractors dig a big trench, they put their conduit and medium voltage cables in the ground and cover it back up, you never see it again. In this case, they said, no, we need everything to be above grade. So 35 kV feeders just sitting on the ground. As if that wasn't complicated enough, this was also in a flood zone. What the civil engineers had told me was all the electrical equipment had to be 2 feet above floodplain, which was, depending on the area, 15 to 16 feet above sea level. If you looked at the topographical map, the survey map, the site itself was anywhere between 9 and 12 feet above sea level. So in some cases, everything just had to be raised up like 3 or 4 feet, but in other cases, it had to be 7 feet up in the air. So just wrap your minds around that. So like I said, some of it just had to be right on the ground, right? Because it's a Superfund no digging, they have ballast to kind of keep the solar panels from moving. And this is the 7 foot, right? You can actually drive under it. I would not recommend it, but you could do it. We were checking that, that's my coworker, we were checking that it was indeed 7 feet. So this is just the actual single line from this project. There's a lot going on here. I'm not going to go over everything. Some of the stuff is blacked out because I have an NDA. But you can see, there's existing poles, utility poles, customer poles, voltage regulator, the controls, the big switch gear that feeds both the solar and the existing plant, lots of medium voltage switches, relays to kind of protect everything, check everything, meters. So like I said, there's 2 different solar fields that had to be metered, the plant had to be metered, everything together had to be metered. And this is just like one of 5, sorry, excuse me. It was a big project that actually involved a lot of teamwork and effort. So this is an example of like inverters being hoisted up, open cable tray with the conductors and the cables and the feeders. Even the giant pad with the 8 MVA transformer and the voltage regulator had to be up, elevated above the floodplain. And really this took a lot of effort from everybody, right? My company was engineer of record. We were the electrical engineers and the engineer on record. But we also worked with civil engineers and structural engineers and contractors and other people and the client, and civil engineers, they're kind of in charge of, mapping out the floodplains and doing stormwater plants and, just kind of, preparing the site. And the structural engineers were responsible for the racking and doing the calcs for the cable tray and the calculations to make sure that this inverter is above floodplain and not going to fall when it floods. And I don't need to tell you, electricity and water is a bad idea, right? And even building that structure, right? I know it's hard to tell, but you can see that man, it's just, average human, and how big it all is and how heavy it is. And that takes a lot of teamwork. And you also have contractors that are building this, and they really hope that all 3 of our plans match. And they want to make sure that everything's correct, that everything is kind of easy for them to do, not like clear plans. They want to be safe. They don't want to do anything that's going to cause them to be in a perilous situation. And the client just wants everything to work. They want it done by a certain time, and it's time and money, and that's what they don't have enough of, right? So this was a project, and I learned a lot about teamwork on this very particular project. So the first piece of advice I want to give is QC. So, check your work, check others' work. Leaders always make sure that everyone's producing their best work. In this particular case, I know that you all are students, and you're 80% through an exam, and you are really tired, and you just want to stop, and you want to leave your grade up to fate, and that's, I did it too when I was an undergrad and I was in school, but it's a lot different when you're in, the real world, and it's somebody's actual time that you're spending, it's somebody's actual money, and these are real people that need you to do your best. And leaders always make sure that everyone's producing their best work. Like I said, we were engineer on record, and one of my tasks was to take the structural drawings and make sure that they match the civil engineer floodplains, right? Everything had to be 2 feet above floodplain. And I was looking, and I was, 6 revisions through this, and I was tired, and I really just wanted to say, it's their thing, they need to just accept it. But that's not the right way to do it. And when I was looking and something wasn't adding up, I was like, I'm just gonna give them a call. And I called them, and I said, I think something's off. We talked, and it turns out that they were actually using the wrong floodplain maps. Everything was a little bit shorter than the civil engineers had. So once everyone kind of had the same plans, you could go forward and produce the best product. Now, if nobody bothered to, not that I'm saying that I had to, but people need to check, this could have been a much more expensive problem once it had gone into production. The other piece of advice is ask questions, right? I'm still green, you guys are probably still green, and you're not gonna know everything, right? We're always constantly learning. So it's always important to ask questions. If you have an idea, you should voice it. One of 2 things will happen. One, nobody's thought of that, and you actually have a good idea, and it actually goes forth, right? That's great, that's what you want. The other thing that can happen is there's a good reason for it, and somebody's going to tell you the reason why they can't do your idea, and in that case, you learn something. Yeah. The third one is ask dumb questions. And I know that doesn't that sound like the same as the second one? It's really not. When I was first starting in my career, I was real afraid that if I didn't know something, then I was afraid to say anything. I didn't want to look stupid. I didn't want to look like I didn't know what I was doing, since everyone else assumed that they knew what they were doing, right? But and I told this to my boss, and he was like, ask the questions. Even if you think they're dumb, ask them. It's more important that you are on the same page as someone than pretending like you know something and then doing something wrong, and someone will think you're stupid for that, Okay. The fourth piece of advice is you should treat everybody with respect. Know where they're coming from. This is, different people, clients, contractors, engineers, we all have different education standards. We all have different ways of doing things. For example, a lot of times contractors will we'll draw a line and we'll think that the shortest distance is the best distance. So, as the crow flies from point A to point B is how we draw our trenches. But the trench is crossing a road. A contractor is not going to cut diagonally through a road. You don't see that, right? It's actually much easier for them to go perpendicularly because that part of the road, that shortest distance is the most expensive to cut. So it's actually a lot easier to go diagonally, perpendicularly, and then, ultimately that is longer, but that is actually the better way to do something. And that just comes with experience, right? And the fifth piece of advice is always develop good relationships. You're gonna get angry at somebody, your coworkers, your boss, your subs, everybody. You can't let your feelings get the best of you. I always say, let all your feelings out. Complain to your other coworkers, your other boss about your clients, blah, 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 and kind of let it out and then treat everybody with respect, right? It goes back to the fourth piece of advice. Everyone is supposed to be working together and there's really no room for poisonous feelings, right? I would like to say that you should all care. The number one thing is caring. When I went to my boss and I was like, oh my God, I'm messing up or whatever, and I feel like I don't know anything or something, my boss said, experience will come. We can teach you the things you don't know. What we can't teach you is how to care. And that's the most important part. Plus, I don't have to tell you that electricity can be dangerous. And if you care about your fellow human beings and you want to make sure that everyone's safe, you're making sure that somebody goes home at the end of the day. Yeah. Also, just my personal, what I try to tell anybody who's about to enter the workforce is set goals for yourself. We're all coming out of, Drexel. We got fast quarters and, we go from project to exam to midterm to finals to other project, and it's all about just finishing the next thing, finishing this week, finishing this quarter, finishing that class. And once you're out of Drexel, it's kind of hard to kind of go through this, what I think is monotony. But as long as you keep setting goals for yourself and you want to challenge yourself, you're going to grow professionally. And that's the best piece of advice that I can give you. Everyone succeeds together. My team, there were some rough times, but as much as I wanted to blame it on some other engineer or the contractor or my client, my boss would say, no, you can't do that. It doesn't matter how you feel. At the end of the day, this needs to get built. And it's very important that we all succeed together. This will be our success to share. And if one entity misses, it hurts the whole team. It's not just that contractor or that engineer or that client that loses, it's everybody. Ultimately, the site that, some things went wrong, some things went right, ultimately it's built at the end of the day. That single line that I showed you was record condition. This baby's up and firing. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing, producing clean energy. And yeah, all's well that ends well. Any questions? Thank you. Sure.
Do you use any kind of battery technologies behind?
Yes and no. This project didn't have batteries, but I have done battery projects, and a lot of the energy market is driven by recent legislation. So you'll see batteries there where utilities say they want batteries or where the government says they want batteries. So if you actually looked at the industry as a whole, there's a lot of batteries up in New York and Massachusetts right now. And then I've separately done small battery projects.
So all the energy that is being generated is being consumed or being sold to Pico Energy?
Well, this is JCP&L, so it's not Pico. But I do think that for the most part they are consuming all that energy. If they are not using as much as they're producing, actually the solar shuts off. I do not think that they are allowed to export to the grid. But they have such a high load that before I even got hands on this project, someone sized it. They said that this is the target AC that we're never going to export. And that's generally how a lot of my projects go. Somebody's already kind of said this is our target AC capacity, kWh.
Why did they choose the flood zone to come up with this?
I don't know. You know what? I do a lot of projects actually on Superfund sites, just because, I don't know what the media says, like, oh, they're taking up precious farmland and putting solar on it, blah, 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 blah. Really, ultimately, that's not true. I mean, in some cases it's true, but a lot of my projects are done on landfills where you're not going to grow anything and you're not going to build houses on it. It's just land that's not being used. This just happened to be what they had. They had this piece of land that they weren't going to do anything else with it, and someone sold this project to them, and there it is.
So what were they doing with all that energy that were being consumed in that place?
It's a factory. I know what they're doing. I'm not allowed to say. It's not anything secret government business. So.
Do you have an idea about the maintenance of the solar plant when we create? How costly per year to maintain?
I do not know this. I think the people who built the site actually have the O&M contract. For them, they have it depends on the size of the site and it depends where you're at. A lot of times people need to mow the grass, and mowing the grass is hard if you have cable tray just sticking up, because you can only go so far into the row before you have to turn back around and then go around to get to the other side. So I don't know how much it costs, but it's worth something. It's worth something such that someone knows that they are making a profit on it.
Why would they need to have grass underneath it?
There's grass that's growing, and they just have
Super site fund, so
grass still grows. You're not gonna eat. I would not recommend eating the grass, but grass still grows. I actually did a solar site where it was a pollinator site. So they put in bee hives everywhere and then planted flowers around to help bees kind of flourish in that area. It's a solar site, nobody's gonna walk around high voltage, but the bees have a place to go and kind of, keep doing what they're doing. And for that, you definitely need to clean the brush. You gotta keep the flowers down so that they don't shade the modules.
One question I wanted to ask about your Drexel experience.
Sure.
You did your senior design project probably at Drexel, right?
Yes.
How was that experience? What did you learn from that you are able to apply here? Or
I did not have a super great experience with my senior design project. What I did learn from it, I passed, everything's good, but what I did learn from it is the people that you work with are not necessarily your friends, and you can't, even if they are your friends, you gotta treat it like a business. So if someone's not pulling their weight, you gotta tell them, hey, you're not pulling your weight, and not pull any punches, just get straight to the truth and say, you need to do better. I'm not here to baby you. I didn't have to do that here, but that is something I did learn.
So this is the group experience you're talking about?
Yes. But it was a very unique group experience that I had. Certainly not like this one. This one,
You're not the only one. I have seen many groups.
yeah, I'm sure.
Not functional.
When I was about to take the class, they were like, "Oh, I've seen marriages." Like somebody said, "Oh, I've seen marriages end through senior design." I was like, "Ooh, it's a good thing I'm single."
I just had this experience just a few days ago, but it's a freshman design group, but it's not a senior. But her question was, how come I have to do everything and none of my group members do anything? And how do I solve it?
That's where the role of advisor comes into picture, very important.
That's what I told her.
Because you decide what are the tasks that are needed to be done and who is going to be responsible for what. And as much as it's a group activity, but when you decide what are the tasks and who is responsible for it, you can check the progress of that task. Same thing that you've done with the project management, civil engineer, structural engineer, you had to check their work and make sure that they are everyone on the same page.
Yes, everyone has to be on the same page, but not just that, I cannot necessarily check if a structural engineer's calcs are correct. I'm not a structural engineer. There's a level of trust that goes into that. You know, I have to put my faith that whoever signed and sealed this package did it in good faith. That is a difficult part in and of itself. And of course, when the issues that arise during freshman and senior design, where someone's not pulling their weight, might not be the same experience when you're out in the real world and people are doing this for their jobs. You don't really give somebody a contract and then they never do the work that they signed up to do. That's you go to court over that. It's more of a serious thing. So it's not quite the same, but you know.
It's the same thing as well. For senior design projects, I have given different grades for different members of the team because of the fact that each person were responsible for certain tasks, and if they have not delivered, then they don't deserve it.
You are very fair then. Okay, well, thank you so much for having me.
I think it's magnificent to see not only our current students here, but also one of our own alumni and soon to be graduating as an undergraduate. Our organization is a graduate student organization, which brings one important aspect. Education is a ongoing process. Every day you have to learn something new. And even for the engineers in the field, not only they gain experience by doing the work, but also they should look at continuing education, pursuing their graduate studies, as well as collaborating with individuals that they have many years of experience. And that's the best thing associated with Drexel education. With the co-op, you're going to go through this process quite rigorously. We are here to recognize a number of officers that they contributed to the success that we had last year. And in fact, this forum, which was established in 2005 under the initiative of the graduate students, because of the interest of the graduates and undergraduates are somewhat different. Graduate students are more involved with the deeper learning aspects. The pressures of the exams are not as rigorous as the pressures of the exam for undergraduates. They have their own pressure of doing research, publishing, passing various examinations that are related to the PhD program, which could be a lot more stressful than one exam or a midterm. So we are here to recognize the success of the graduate students to establish a forum for their interest, to build up a community, networking with other professionals, and on top of it, organize an avenue to showcase the research activity. The capstone of that activity is the student poster competition and the research presentation that they make in the last 11 years, and we are going to have our 12th annual student poster competition that is going to be sometime in month of March or April. Please keep your eyes and your interest peaked toward this activity. It's an opportunity to present your work among your friends and in the same time receive a cash reward if you are the top awardees in this poster competition. This event has been done in the last 11 years, and we are going to have it done also for the 12th year this year in March, April. And the key part of this event is not only the student poster competition, but also the presentation that experts in the fields they make during the activities that we have in the morning as well as in the afternoon. We had 4 speakers for the March 4th event that we had this year. We are always having great speakers. We had one from Drexel, a new faculty member in the EC department, and another faculty member from the business school. And we had one faculty member from University of Pennsylvania and another one from Villanova University. So each year we go through a combination of not only local faculty members, and even sometimes we invite distinguished lecturers to come in and give the presentation. So we are very much blessed in Philadelphia, in particular, not only many institutions, but also great organizations and companies. And through the IEEE Philadelphia section, we receive all kinds of financial support. Graduate Student Association is another organization, Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, as well as the colleges of Engineering, College of Computation and Informatics, as well as the School of Biomedical Engineering that are sponsors of all these events. So the officers last year that they not only held a number of talks and social activities, but also showcase the major event of the 11th annual student poster competition are going to be recognized this evening. And I'd like to invite Jay Butt to join me in this regard to recognize the individuals. So we like to recognize Nivida Sashikant. So please come in the center, and I think you're going to have your photograph taken.
Can you go closer?
And Khalid Horeib, who is now the president of the and also Evan Matthew. last but not the least, Adita Debraha Ali. Thank you very much for all the hard work that the officers of 2019 and 2020 they have put through to not only organize 2 events thus far, but they have planned a number of other events for this year. Please be part of the activity. Help us to spread the word among various graduate students in your classes, the collaborators that you work with, and on top of it, make sure that you contribute to the success of the organization. It is your organization, and your participation is extremely valued. And I know that there are a number of pizzas back there available, and please help yourself. And I think, when will be our next event, Khalid?
We have an event on the 13th with JBAC for career and library resources. And also we have an event workshop scheduled for machine learning on November 8th and 15th. So keep an eye on the emails. We'll send you.
Thank you very much, Khalid, for all the hard work that you guys have put together.
Thank you.
And what time is it on 30th?
5.
At 5 p.m. Is that here?
It's Boston.
302 Boston.
I know I have already registered.